There are indications suggesting that the year 2025 will mark a turning point for a significant transformation on a global level. During this year, major changes will occur, especially in the human psyche. Many will begin to question the reality they live in even more intensely. An inner revolution will take place within each of us, compelling us to question everything. The year begins with impressive celestial events visible to everyone without special equipment. 6 planets will align in the sky, a rare astronomical phenomenon. The planetary alignment of Mars, Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, Venus, and Saturn will occur on January 21, 2025. All planets, except Neptune and Uranus, will be visible to the naked eye, while these two can only be seen with a telescope. However, this will only be the beginning of a year that will be of critical importance to humanity. Another event, to which little attention is given but which will significantly affect all living beings, including humans, is the increase in solar flares. These had already profoundly impacted society in the last months of 2024, but are expected to peak in 2025 and continue into 2026. Currently, we are at the 11-year peak of solar cycle 25. While scientists initially predicted that the solar flares would be mild, these forecasts turned out to be incorrect. In mid-2024, a series of intense solar flares and coronal mass ejections sent clouds of charged particles and magnetic fields toward Earth, causing the strongest geomagnetic storm in the past 2 decades. Experts have since acknowledged that they underestimated the power of the current solar cycle. The increase in solar activity will continue and is expected to peak in July 2025. The U.S. government's National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration (NOAA) reported a record of 299 sunspots observed within just 24 hours, the highest daily sunspot activity in over 22 years. This activity is expected to grow further, reaching its zenith in mid-2025. Geomagnetic storms caused by solar activity not only influence the auroras, but also significantly impact all living beings, including humans, both physically and mentally. It is widely agreed that the sun is the primary driver of climate fluctuations. Increased solar activity has been observed to raise Earth's temperatures. Interestingly, David Sibek, a space physicist at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, has reported the existence of particle streams flowing between the Sun and Earth in both directions. This phenomenon, referred to as flux transfer events (FTS), has significantly increased in recent years. This phenomenon, referred to as flux transfer events (FTS), has significantly increased in recent years. The systematic recording of sunspot activity began in 1755. We are currently in solar cycle 25, which officially started in early 2019 and will last until 2030. Even at the start of this cycle, many people began questioning various aspects of life. However, the cycle is far from over. Looking back at the last nearly 6 years, we see that they have been incredibly intense socially and psychologically. By mid-2025, this cycle will reach its peak. From 2027 to 2028, its intensity will gradually decrease until it ends in 2030. As we can see, all events will culminate in 2025. However, another event will arguably be the most significant of all. Studies by Indian scholar and independent researcher Bibhu Dev Misra, who specializes in ancient cultures and myths, suggest that the year 2025 marks the end of the Kali Yuga cycle, the age of darkness according to ancient Indian texts. Misra discovered errors in the scientific data used to determine the duration of the ages or cycles of the yugas. He presented archaeological and geological evidence to support his findings. This raises the question of whether these errors were accidental or if there was deliberate manipulation of the data. According to the Yuga cycle, there are 4 ages: the Golden, Silver, Bronze, and current age, the Kali Yuga or Iron Age. Kali Yuga is described as the age of darkness, in which moral virtues and spiritual abilities reach their lowest point in the cycle. The Indian epic Mahabharata describes the Kali Yuga as a phase in which the soul of the world becomes increasingly obscured until it is completely extinguished. According to Misra, this date, marking the end of the Kali Yuga or Iron Age, will be reached in 2025. During this cycle, diseases, disasters, fear, and scarcity intensify. Life forms generally degenerate. The epic describes the Satya Yuga or Golden Age as a time when there was neither poverty nor wealth, no need to work, no diseases, no aging, no hatred, and no fear. The universal soul was white. In the Treta Yuga or Silver Age, sacrificial rituals began, and the soul of the world turned red. In the Dvapara Yuga or Bronze Age, truth became hidden, and diseases and disasters emerged. We are currently in the Kali Yuga, but the big question remains, when will it end? The generally accepted date for the beginning of the Kali Yuga is 3102 BCE, 35 years after the end of the Great Mahabharata War. Interestingly, this coincides with the start of the Mayan long count calendar, dated to 3114 BCE. Remarkably, the Maya revised their ancient calendar sometime between 400 BCE and 50 CE in the ceremonial center of Azapa, Mexico, establishing the start date of the current great cycle of their long count. Similarly, significant revisions to Indian calendar systems were made around 500 CE. At that time, the famous astronomer Aryabhata determined the year 3102 BCE as the start of the Kali Yuga. Why were these dates suddenly recalculated? The astronomer Aryabhata is said to have based the determination of this date on the Sanskrit astronomical table Surya Siddhanta. According to him, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn were aligned at the end of the Golden Age Satya Yuga in the 0-degree range of the Aries constellation. However, Misra argues that this claim was distorted by some early commentators to provide astronomical justification for the date 3102 BCE. The original text states, "Now, at the end of the Golden Age Satya Yuga, all planets are in conjunction at the first degree of the Aries constellation." Thus, it was not in the 0-degree range. Similarities also exist with ancient Greek texts. In the Timaeus, Plato refers to a perfect year, completed when the sun, moon, and planets return to the same relative positions. This great year, also known as the perfect year, Platonic year, or by other names, was said by Cicero to last 12,954 years, or according to Heraclitus, 10,800 years. Sri Yukswar noted that many Sanskrit texts artificially inflated the duration of the 12,000-year Yuga cycle to unusually high values. However, texts like the Mahabharata and the Manusmriti preserve the original 12,000-year Yuga cycle. Other ancient cultures, such as the Chaldeans, Zoroastrians, and Greeks, also supported the concept of a 12,000-year cycle of ages. Yukswar, in his 1894 work The Holy Science, showed that a Yuga cycle spans 24,000 years, consisting of a 12,000-year ascending cycle, in which virtue gradually increases, and a 12,000-year descending cycle, in which virtue gradually diminishes. Using the Saptarshi calendar as a basis for the Yuga cycle's duration, i.e., 2,700 years for the Yugas with 300-year transitional phases, the complete sequence of the Yuga cycle is as follows. This sequence suggests that the Golden Age began in 12,676 BCE. The timeline also shows that the ascending Kali Yuga, the current era we live in, will end in 2025 CE. All of this leads us to believe that 2025 will be a pivotal year. All of this leads us to believe that 2025 will be a pivotal year, gradually ushering us out of the current age of darkness.